Carbohydrates, sugars, and some of these words you will find familiar. Okay, sugars are made from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Okay, and we've got monosaccharides, which are single sugars, disaccharides, which are two sugars, and polysaccharides, which are many. And an example of a single monosaccharide is glucose. Okay, you've got sucrose, okay, which is a double sugar, and then you've got bigger sugars here that are like starch is a big sugar, like bread. It's what we call a polysaccharide. Okay. What do we got here now? Carbohydrates, we got glucose, fructose, galactose, deoxyribose. This is found in DNA. Ribose, found in RNA. And you'll see here that the DNA, this is the glorified library where all of our important information is stored. It never leaves the nucleus. It's there, it's protected, it's safe. If we ever do need a copy of the DNA to leave and go and do something, what happens is the body makes a flimsy copy called RNA. And this is a flimsy copy of the DNA that can travel and move and go and work on behalf of the DNA. We'll show you all this there. So more about disaccharides, more about sugars, and I'm not too interested in, if you guys can know what a monosaccharide, a disaccharide, a polysaccharide, give me an example. I'm all right with this. All sugars are high in energy, okay? And that's why, and they're very easy to decompose. They're very easy to get that energy from. So that's why your body likes, it'll digest sugars very fast. That's why when you drink a can of Coca-Cola, your body absorbs it in 2 seconds because it's so easy to break down. Your blood sugar spikes, the whole thing. Okay. What do we got here? Starches. These are these polysaccharides. Okay, where it's hundreds, if not thousands, of sugar molecules all linked together to form these strands. And that's what these strands are. They turn into bread, starches, even tree bark. Cellulose is a polysaccharide. All right, cellulose there, which is tree bark, you know, and fiber. You know, when you eat celery and you get that fibrous feeling, that's the cellulose. Those are starches there. Glucagon. This is animal starch. When there's too much sugar in the body, your body stores it as fat. And so your body will scoop up all the sugar in the blood and convert it to what's called glucagon and store it on the shelf. That's what happens there. And then in a time of need or fear or fright or adrenaline, or you just need this because you want to run, your body will start to take this glucagon off the shelf and change it back into glucose. And there's your cellulose there. Uses of glucose: burned immediately for fuel, stored as glucagon, okay, and then burned later as fuel. Can be stored as fat and burned later as fuel. So the things there with glucose, your body will use it up immediately, but if there's too much, it stores it as fat. So isn't it amazing? Your body, like in a can of Coca-Cola, there is no fat. There's no fat at all. It's all sugar. So what happens? Your body can change sugar into fat. Okay. Breakdown of glucose. There's two processes that can happen that your body can break down glucose. There's anaerobic catabolism. That should make sense, or getting there anyway. Anaerobic means absence of oxygen, and catabolism is breaking down. All right. So in this case here, there's no oxygen or very little oxygen present, And what happens is this process of glycolysis. Okay? And it's a heavy-duty process. We're not going to go too heavy into it. But what happens is if you start to break down glucose, sugar, without oxygen, you get this, lactic acid. And lactic acid is that pain in your muscles there the day after. Okay? And that pain in your muscles there the day after, the stiffness, the soreness, that kind of a thing. Okay? So that means there that your body was breaking down sugars in order to get energy, and there wasn't enough oxygen in that particular system. Aerobic catabolism, okay, this is when oxygen is present. And what happens there, the glucose breaks down into carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. We'll show you these, we'll move on. So we've got aerobic and anaerobic catabolism here. And you'll see that without oxygen, okay, you have your sugar, and the process there of glycolysis produces, okay, some ATP, goes to pyruvic acid, and eventually lactic acid. Within the presence of oxygen, if you have enough oxygen in your system to be breaking this down, which is where the body likes to be, have a look at the amount of oxygen or the amount of ATP we can make. So the body prefers to break down sugar with oxygen. You have a look at all this, because you see the same process goes down here, but then now there's a whole subsidiary process called the Krebs Cycle, okay, which can then make all of these ATPs. So again, like for something like this, I would ask the differences there between an anaerobic and an aerobic catabolic system here. What's going on? What's the difference? It's multiple choice, you know what I mean? So the answer will be there. Have a look at the questions there this week, and that'll give you an indicator of what's going on, okay? Making of glucose. The body must have a constant supply of glucose for fuel. Of course it does. Glucose can be made from non-carbohydrate substances. There's a process there called gluconeogenesis, making glucose from non-glucose sources, such as protein. What's the atom associated with protein? N, nitrogen. Now, in a time of extreme fasting, or maybe somebody is suffering from starvation, the body will go after the glucose, the sugar first. And if there's no more sugar, the body will then go after the fats. Okay? And once the fats are gone, so there's no sugar and no fats in the body, then the body will reluctantly start to absorb the muscles. Okay? Protein is not a good source of energy because of that nitrogen. It makes it very difficult for the body to do that. Okay? So that's this process right here. So if the blood sugar drops, protein can be converted to glucose in the liver and released into the blood, getting the sugar back up to a normal level. Okay. Lipids and fats. Lipids, they are organic compounds. Fats come from animals. Plants come from oil, or so oils come from plants. And the whole premise is the fats are solid at room temperature, like butter, animal fat, like on a pork chop or something like this, right? It's a solid at room temperature. Those cause heart problems because they're solids at room temperature. Oils are not. They are liquids at room temperature, so they will flow through the blood vessels without causing any type of heart disease. Most common types of fats, they're called triglycerides, phospholipids, which you have heard before, cell membranes, steroids. Okay, they're also in this category. Good. And you'll see here what's going on is you'll remember back to your phospholipid bilayer for your membranes there of the cell. Okay, you've got this long chain that it doesn't like water. Oil, fats do not like water. All right, and that's what Here's an example of a triglyceride. There's 3 of them there. Here we got a phospholipid. And for this to be a phospholipid bilayer, we would need the same thing inverted underneath, right? And here's an example of a steroid. In this case here, it's cholesterol. Okay? Uses of lipids: source of energy, cell membranes, myelin sheath, nerves. Okay? So lipids there, they cover some of the areas of the nerve for protection. Steroid production and long-term energy storage. You know, like look at bears. You know, they eat hundreds of pounds of food during the course of a summer, put on all this weight there in the winter for the winter, and then sleep it all off, and they wake up and they're all skinny again. Okay, so it's a way of survival. Okay, good and bad cholesterol. These are good. We've got, I'm sure maybe you guys have, at least some of you guys have heard of these here. You've got HDL, LDL, and VLDL. So there are high-density lipoproteins. Cholesterol is the core. It has a role where it carries cholesterol from the peripheral tissue to the liver. Okay, these are high-density lipoproteins. Low-density lipoproteins, where cholesterol is the core lipid, delivers cholesterol to non-hepatic tissue. Now, hepatic, that means liver. So these guys here are carrying stuff from the cells to the liver for excretion. These guys here, okay, they are delivering to everything but the liver, okay, not for excretion. Okay, and here we have VLDL, which is very low density lipoproteins. Okay, these guys here, they contain mostly triglycerides, where the role is transport these triglycerides to the fat tissue and muscle. Okay, adipose means fat. All right, what do we got here? Proteins, the most abundant organic matter in the body. They participate in so many things here. We've got enzymes, hormones, hemoglobin, contractile muscle proteins, plasma proteins, antibodies, and structural proteins. So enzymes, you remember there last week, these are these little molecules there that do chemical reactions, and they make it easier for the body so the body doesn't have to use as much energy. Hormones. There's 2 ways that the body talks to each other. Okay? Fast and efficient is nerves. Ow, I just burnt my toe. Okay, good. Whew. But hormones, they're very slow to propagate. The nervous system is very fast, but the hormones there, they're very slow, but they're very strong, and they can last for days, they can last for a week, they can last for longer, okay? Proteins, hemoglobin, blood, oxygen. Muscles, absolutely. Plasma proteins, we'll get in there. Antibodies are for immunity. And structural proteins, they're involved in providing structure there for the body. So we'll get into all these here. There's lots going on. Here is a shot of your amino acid, and this is all these are. These are the basic building blocks of all muscle tissue, and you have an acid group on one side, COOH. This is an acid group. Hey, if you have a question, ask away. If you guys need a question. Is everyone okay? Return to the meeting. What's going on here? I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. Is everyone still here? I just wanted to make sure. Everything is okay? All right, okay. Because I couldn't see anyone's screen there. If you guys do have a question, please ask. It's all good. Okay.
I think everyone went silent because that was scary.
What was scary?
Everything you were just talking about.
Well, you know what? This is what be a little, you know what I mean, aware, a little scared is all right, but you have to remember this PowerPoint here. I'm going to ask 10 questions from, and you know, there I've given you 30, 40, 50 questions there from for this chapter with all the answers. So have a look at these questions there, and if any of them don't make any sense, you just email me and we'll square it all up. So don't worry. It's this is the toughest part because I'm kind of speaking generally about the whole body, because next week now we focus in with a fine-tooth comb and we start working on organ systems. So just next week when I start talking about amino acid, now you'll know what an amino acid is and its purpose and its function. So these amino acids they're all joined together, and these guys here, they link up and they make these proteins. And the proteins there, you can keep building onto them, and you're going to have muscle tissue, bicep or quadricep or all these kinds of things. So these are the basic building blocks. That is what an amino acid looks like. There's an acid group, there's an amine group, and what happens is they just link up. Honestly, they link from one end to another. So you'll start to get these long chains of amino acids, and what will happen is they'll start to fold. They'll start to make these three-dimensional shapes. And I mean, they're massive molecules. And they'll start to fold and create these three-dimensional shapes. So there's your amino acids. Essential and non-essential. Okay, there's essential ones there that they must be included in the diet. I think there's one of them there that it's tryptophan, and it's the amino acid that's whenever you have a turkey dinner and afterwards you fall asleep, right? I don't know if you guys have heard that one there before. There's amino acid there that makes you go to sleep. And there are also non-essential, where the body can synthesize these. Both are needed. More than half of the amino acids can be synthesized by the body, but there are some there that can't. Like we need a bit of sunlight every day there, and we'll make some vitamin D, right? And so have a look at that. Uses of proteins: hormones, enzymes, antibodies, plasma, and muscle proteins, blood, pretty much all cell membranes. If needed, these proteins can be broken down as an energy source. Is it a good one? No. Good question is, what's sugar, fat, protein? Can you rank them in order of most available energy, per pound? And your answer would be sugars number 1, fat, lipids are number 2, proteins are way at the bottom. You don't get a lot of ATP from breaking down muscle. That's why the body doesn't like to do it. Okay? And the process of breaking down muscle, gluconeogenesis. Okay? What do we got here? Here we've got the elimination of the nitrogen. Here we've got urine. Okay? And where does nitrogen come from? It's from protein, right? So nitrogen is a waste product of the amino acid breakdown. And your body doesn't really store it. Okay? So what it does is it gets rid of it as urine. And here's a shot of your, this is a urea molecule. It's very simple. Okay? It's not a big thing here, but when amino acids there get broken down, the body changes them there to urea and excretes them out there throughout the ureter and out. But we'll get there when we get to the kidney and a bit of digestion. I think that's about week 8. Most nitrogen is recycled, but the extra nitrogen that is not, okay, it's not stored, it's recycled. But the nitrogen there that can't be, it is removed because too much of it would be toxic. So the liver removes the ammonia, okay, that's this one right here, from the blood and converts it to urea, okay, and then the kidneys excrete this, okay. So that's that in a nutshell, very simplified. We'll get deeper as the weeks go on. So nucleotides and nucleic acid. Here we get into DNA. Okay. Now, again, these are the blueprints, the library, the storage for everything that makes you you. And these are, microscopic molecules, but if a DNA was the size of a person, it's just an incredibly massive, complex molecule that is all held together with this hydrogen bonding. It's phenomenal. But these DNA we'll call nucleotides. These are composed of a sugar, a phosphate group, and a base. Okay? And there are 4 of these bases: adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. Okay? Nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, they're composed of these nucleotides. So you got these amino acids, they must be precisely arranged for protein synthesis. And when these amino acids, they come together, they are put together in a particular form. We don't have control over it. The ribosomes are making these proteins, and they are controlling what protein is going to be made, because all proteins are made from the same amino acids, just different combinations. All right? And where is the pattern of amino acids assembly coded and stored? It's coded and stored within the DNA. So everything comes from the DNA. If a protein if we don't know how to make a protein, okay, what we do, we go back to the DNA. The DNA will tell us how to make this protein. And that's how the whole system works. Okay? This DNA is 2 strands. It's a double-stranded, and it's a helix. Okay? And I'm just wondering, I don't have a video up, do I? Okay, good enough. All right, so now where is my little video of me? I don't know why that's not coming out. Okay, good enough. You guys can't see me, and I don't know where that is. So we're almost done this video, and we'll pause and we'll take another 5 or 10 minute break, and we'll get this going. All right, so let's finish this off. So DNA is a double-stranded helix. Helix just means it's going around up, and you see this right here? This is what we call a double helix. It's moving around in this spiral. The one is kind of chasing the other, and you see they're held together by these base pairs. You see? Here's your phosphate that we saw in the previous slide. Here's your sugar, and then here is your base pair. And you'll see here that this base pair hooks up with another base pair on the other side of this double helix. And these guys are joined. And in this helix here, this is our DNA. This is where everything is stored chemically. Okay? So the rungs of the DNA ladder are formed by these base pairs. Okay? Please know that adenine always goes with thymine. A goes with T. Cytosine goes with guanine. So you'll see right here, I'll zoom in, and you'll see here that this is one strand of the DNA. This is another strand of the DNA. And here's your ribose. You see how it all connects? Okay, it's almost like rungs on a ladder, right? And here's your sugar. And here is your base pair. And here is an adenine. Adenine always goes with a thymine. A always goes with T. Okay? G always goes with C. That's a good little question. Okay? So, let's move on, shall we? Base sequencing genetic code. It's kind of the same thing. The code for protein synthesis is encoded within the sequence of bases in one strand of DNA. So all of these is a message. Everything in here is a message. And when we need to make something, we refer back to the message. We go back to the library and we open up the DNA and we read it. Well, we don't. The body is reading it. And it'll read part of the DNA. Oh, so that's how we do it. And then they take that information there from the DNA and they go and they do whatever task they need to do. So and when we were developing these vaccines, they had to go all the way into the DNA there and to see if there was any hidden messages. And that's one of the things that we're starting to find out, is that there's a lot of hidden information in the DNA that we were previously unaware of. Okay, and we'll get into that there more when we get into some cloning later on. So, code copier for protein synthesis. You remember we talked about how the nucleus houses the DNA. And then there was this nuclear membrane there, the envelope that covers there, the nucleus. And remember I said it was very porous. All right? Things move in, things move out. The DNA doesn't move anywhere. But if we need to get some information that the DNA houses to somewhere else, well, what we'll do is we'll open up the DNA, make a copy of that strand of DNA that has the message that we want, and we'll turn that into a flimsy copy. And this flimsy copy is called RNA. And we call it mRNA because it's a messenger RNA. And what will happen is this flimsy copy of the DNA will travel outside of the nucleus, and we'll go to a ribosome or go somewhere where it's needed, where it will provide the information necessary. Okay, so the DNA, that's the house. That never leaves. That never leaves the nucleus. But the DNA in this form can leave the nucleus, so the information from the DNA is actually mobile. And what happens is the body will make a copy of the DNA, and this copy is what we call RNA. Okay? So, what goes on here? There's another kind of RNA, and this is called tRNA. Okay? And what happens here, this connects to a single amino acid. All right? And starts to make the protein. The mRNA comes out to the ribosomes, hooks on, the ribosomes read it, and they go, okay, I need these amino acids. And what happens is the tRNA brings it in, and now we start making a chain. It brings all these amino acids, and we start making a chain that are correctly aligned, and now we keep doing it until we can form a protein. So you've got mRNA, which is the messenger RNA, which is a copy of the DNA, a flimsy copy. It travels out, okay, and the tRNA brings in proteins. And that's how we make big banana, big protein muscles, these kinds of things here. So we've got the DNA strand is copied onto an mRNA, okay. The mRNA leaves the nucleus, travels to the ribosomes. The tRNA brings in amino acids. It reads the mRNA and brings in the amino acids. And then the amino acids are changed into muscles. What do you got? Talk to me.
You said, with the last slide, how it can lead to, the creation of, a big banana and stuff. So is it like a steroid in a sense?
No. This is making proteins. This is the cell itself making individual proteins. And, okay. You can get bigger ones. You're not going to make a bicep from this process. So
it's not purposefully accelerating the growth like a steroid. It's just simply making the protein.
It's making a protein for, let's say the cell says, yeah, we need more of this kind of protein. Okay, so then we make our mRNA, which is a copy of the protein there that was copied from the DNA on how to make it. This mRNA travels outside the nucleus to the ribosome. When the ribosome makes protein, so then the tRNA reads it, the mRNA copy and starts bringing in amino acids, and we start getting links put on this, and our amino acid starts to grow and grow and grow until we have the protein there that we needed. So that's the process. Talk to me. How's that? All right?
Yeah.
All right. Good. I know it's heavy stuff, but try and work through it, and I'm available. Email me, let me know if something's bothering you. It's all good. We'll get her straightened out. And
I have one question.
yeah. Sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, I have one question. I just wondered if this takes energy to do, or is it something that's passive, or is it like the ATP, would that take energy for our cells to do all of this, or is it just a passive thing that's just happening?
Well, that's a good question. And this costs a lot of money. It does. Because you've got your DNA, which is in a double helix, right? And it's sitting there in its home in the nucleus. And the cell says, we need to make this particular protein. We don't know how to do it because I'm just a cell. So then what happens is the DNA opens up. Part of it opens up. It is scanned. In that process, this mRNA translation molecule is made. And then the mRNA travels outside of the nucleus to a ribosome, where it is read by the tRNA, and then amino acids are brought in according to the code that the mRNA brought, and the protein's made. So yeah, there's a lot of money being spent here. Good question. Is that okay? Good. All right. So we're at the end of this one here. This is what's going on. The genetic code and the protein synthesis there. This is just a recap. The DNA strand is copied. The mRNA leaves the nucleus, and to the tRNA is read. The tRNA reads the mRNA, and amino acids are brought in, and your protein chain is made. So that's basically what's going on here in a nutshell. Okay. And you have a look here. This is kind of a schematic of what's going on. So I'll blow this all up, and hopefully there next week I'll have videos. I'm hoping there that my publisher guy can come through and I can get some videos going there for you guys there for before your test. Because visual learning, having a movie is awesome. And I know these videos, I just can't access them right now. So this is what we got. The DNA, if a protein is needed and we need to make it, the DNA is opened up and it's scanned, and from this an mRNA copy is made. Okay? And so this mRNA copy, which is a copy of the DNA exactly, but only a snippet, right? Because this snippet here will tell us how to make the protein we need. I don't need to copy the whole DNA. That would take years. I only need a snippet. So then the mRNA leaves the nucleus and travels to the ribosome. Okay? And then now the tRNA reads this, brings in the specific amino acid that is necessary. You see? It's reading it right here. And another one's coming. And another one's coming. And you see what happens in the whole process there is that this amino acid gets hooked to this amino acid. This one here is coming in behind. It'll get hooked. So that's how you have your chain. That's what's going on there. And that's the whole process of making a protein. So you've got transcription is the copying of the DNA strand into mRNA. Transcription, that's this process right here. Translation is the tRNA reading this and bringing in the correct amino acid. So when I say transcription, it's reading the DNA to make an mRNA molecule. Translation is the tRNA reading this mRNA molecule and bringing in a protein. Two different bananas here, translation and transcription. Okay? That's what we got there. How we doing? Questions? Talk to me. I know it's tough. But we got one more PowerPoint to do. If you got a jet, you got a jet. It's all good. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and I'll be back here at, well, it's 2:04. I'll see you guys back at 2:10. And the other PowerPoint isn't long, so I'm thinking it should be about 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so. So if that works, we'll see you guys back.